Talkopolis programming is sponsored in part by the Centre for Advanced Dentistry, now serving the Greater Nashville area. Hi guys, welcome to Serious Startups. I'm Kane Harrison. This is where we discuss the nuts and bolts of successful entrepreneurship. We're joined by our fantastic panel once again, Dave Ledgerwood, Monica Selby. We're going to talk about the pace of startups and the ebbs and flows that go with it. When do we push? When do we pull back? Ledge, you brought this subject to the table, so we'll let you fire it off.
Yeah, so I come from a distance running background, right? So I'm thinking, well, when you're training for a marathon, you know that there's a certain level of like really hard, intensive training you can do before your body is kind of break down, right? So you plan your training schedule, you do that race, but you also would behave differently if you're trying to train to run like a fast 1 mile race or a sprint, right? And so I started to think about that from the startup and entrepreneur context. It's like we burn hard, on trying to do a project or launch a new startup. And I mean, you can just sort of only run the rocket booster that long before your body just gives out. You're not sleeping enough, too much nicotine, too much caffeine, but there is that threshold and you sort of, you need to push it. But at some point you're going to get sick. And so how do you do your own energy and life budget around that? Knowing that, okay, I'm willing to put in the dues for this amount of time, but I also, having done it so many times, now I know it's like I can burn it at both ends for about 2 weeks before I'm going to get sick. I'll go down for the count for a week, and that's not, on average, that's not very productive, right? So like, what's that threshold, and how do you figure it out for yourself?
Great question. I mean, that is the question, because I think especially...
As I drink my Mountain Dew.
Right, but I think especially in startups, and I think for young entrepreneurs of this whole, the idealism of thinking, we're going into this, we're going to have an exit in 2 years so we can run like steam and go for it. I mean, that I see so many youngsters thinking that's the way to go. But to what you're saying, I mean, when you know you're training for a marathon, you train for a marathon.
Right.
And I think that is one of the parts that is difficult, I know from my perspective, is you kind of never know how long this race is actually going to be.
Yeah.
And so that's
and there's that mirage of the finish line often, like if I just got one more, but then it keeps moving.
Yeah. So I think that you're right in some of the things you bring up. I mean, your thresholds, those 2 weeks periods. I think the other really good thing is to, if you can, and you're different, but to have a great partner. If you've got a partner in your venture, because you can balance those ebbs and flows of saying, look, I just need to back off for a second, so you take it over. What's your experience, Monica?
Yeah, this is actually a great topic. When I first took over at Niblets, that was something my co-founder told me every day. Monica, stop. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And I told him, I said, right, but I'm new. Like, I'm learning. I have to sprint through this X amount of time, or I won't be able to catch up to where I need to be. And so for me, that was a necessary sprint, and it about killed me. Yeah. I mean, it was intense, and it wasn't 2 weeks. It was 4 months of intense 18-hour, 20-hour days trying to catch up, maintain, and get to where we needed to be. But when that was over, I was done. And it took me probably a month to get back to where I even wanted to think about work again.
Well, I mean, here's a great question. So that 4 months that you had, and I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but we can do this. If you were to do that again, would you do the same thing, or would you do it a little differently?
Nope, I would do the exact same thing. Yeah, and I would tell myself throughout that time that, I'm going to crash, and I need to, I would do the crash period differently. Because during that month that it took me to get back in the swing of things, I beat myself up. It's like, why am I not working? Why am I not able to focus? Why am I not able to care about anything ever? But I would absolutely, and I wouldn't recommend a 4-month sprint for anybody at any time. I probably wouldn't take another 4-month sprint. But like I said, I was new, and I felt like I needed to prove myself. I needed to grow my network. I needed to do my job, my daily maintenance tasks, but I also needed to grow in what I was doing. And so
in that period, for instance, if you had the 4 months where you went like crazy, and then 1 month where you were useless,
absolutely useless.
So when you think about
I'm glad we sold the company.
But when you think about it from the perspective of, okay, if I could spread that 4 months over 5 months and use some of that time to have some downtime within that space, actually manage my time, manage my
budgeting,
health, all those different things, exactly the same. And I know as entrepreneurs, we're so keen, especially if we wrap our heads around an idea. and the team's passionate and we're going somewhere and maybe we can see some money start to come through the door. It's all those motivations. But it's so true. I mean, my mum used to say it to me all the time, you're no good for anyone if you're on the couch.
Right.
Sick. So
well, it's like how many real hours of that, that's what I challenge myself on. It's like I really kill myself. Maybe it's not that productive, you know, but I do have focus issues, right? So I know like probably I did 3 real hours of work each day. And then, you know, stuff was all over the place. And I don't know if you could, I don't think I can, but, you know, can you compress that 3 hours, really do the 3 hours and then stop? I would love that, but I just seem to suck at it.
I've heard that from a lot of productivity experts too. Like, you really get 3 hours of work done a day, so do your 3 hours of work and then go do whatever else.
I mean,
I just don't.
But I would say,
what happens if my 3 hours isn't when his 3 hours are, and I need him to do stuff for me, or vice versa?
Right, or like in my first hour, like I have a dependency for something I need to ask you, but you're sleeping, you're just off.
It's
right?
not your 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's intersecting circles.
We work with other people. I know that's shocking in the digital world.
And all those sorts of things. I mean, it's exactly right.
Well, I will say though that like I said, I did that 4-month sprint, but I was learning. Like I was catching up, and it was a huge learning curve for me. And so I don't know that I would ever do that again or ever recommend it, because that wasn't work. So when I wasn't doing my work, I was doing my research so that I could do my work.
Like becoming smarter in a new context.
That's
hard.
exactly right.
So you're teaching yourself and having to do all the activities.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So I mean, my answer has been like, I've been challenging myself just for like, I'm not going to do any activities that I don't have to, and I need to get staff. I need to get a virtual assistant, and I give as much stuff as possible. So I just wrote I've never done this. I've never written goals down in all my years, despite telling other people, oh, if you write your goals down, but so I did it, and I said, I'm going to double the amount of money I pay my assistant next year. And it's hourly, so what I'm really saying is like I got to get stuff out of my life and turn over everything, because I just don't do it, and it stresses me out. I have like this baked-in stress about the things that I'm not doing, but I feel great when I know that other people are out there doing them, and things are happening when I'm not working. Makes me feel amazing.
It's a very Tim Ferriss solution there for you.
Maybe I never read that, but I believe that that's true, and it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in modern life, there are just so many things to juggle. And when you add in parenting, like running your life, and I know we don't ever want to admit in startups that we have a life outside of our company. But
I definitely do. I'm an advocate for it. I mean, I absolutely am. There's one of the reasons, not unlike Ledge, that I went down this path was so that I could have a life.
Yeah.
And so we get to choose our hours and all those sorts of things, and usually, I'm the one to blame if I'm working too hard. So, but there needs to be that work-life balance, and I know that is sometimes a myth.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so elusive, but it's so true. I mean, and that's why, sure, the risk and my makeup lends towards startups and things, but for me, it truly is that work-life balance. If I want to work on Sunday, I'll do it. If I want to have Monday off, I'll do it.
Yeah,
if I can.
I found a calendar helps if I have my assistant run the calendar, because I suck running the calendar. But if it's in the calendar and the phone tells me to do it, generally I do it, and I can like offload that. I'm reading The Organized Mind right now, and that's what a lot of that book is about. Is can we use external systems to organize stuff that we don't need to be constantly turning on, and that helps. And I can put in stuff like the fun run is at 11 o'clock tomorrow at the elementary school. It's in my calendar. Like I can plan around that. Right. And so now what I do is take every email that comes in, even to my personal stuff. If it has a date or a time in there, I forward it to my assistant and say, please put this in the calendar. Everything. So I don't think about it. I don't miss it, and I'm not stressing about missing things.
So, but here's the question I have. So we're all older. We're not in our 20s anymore.
Thank God.
Thank God. That's right. Thank God. I literally celebrated the day I turned 30. I was so happy to be 30. But we're all a little bit older. Ledge and I have kids. We've built lives outside of work. So what do we tell the 21-year-old, 22-year-old founder who's just maybe graduated college or skipped college and is starting up, and they don't have a life outside of their startup? Like, is the advice go hard while you can, or is the advice start building your life now so that when you're 30 you have one?
I think from my perspective, I would say go hard when you have to. And it's a perception, because you always put yourself against your peers, right? So if everyone's
Right.
sitting around and going, I'm working really hard and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, I can guarantee you they're not.
They're
either,
not.
by
Yeah,
the
that's
way.
probably crap.
Right.
But
If
just
you're talking about working, you're probably not working.
that's exactly,
exactly
right.
right.
Yeah, and so that would be my suggestion. It would be that definitely go hard when you have to.
Right.
But when you get the opportunity to take a breath, I can guarantee you that's when you'll make most of your best decisions. And sometimes when you are going so hard and so fast, things are just blurring by you and you make really silly decisions, or you just miss great opportunities because you haven't had that peripheral vision, the ability to just stop and rest for a minute. But your health's the most important. And I know when you're younger, you can probably go a little harder and things like that. But
You certainly have a tolerance
So-
level that's higher.
I mean,
So
and it
there's
goes
actually,
away. I'm tired. I'm old.
There's actually a study done though, like that's what we say, right? So you're younger, you can go harder and longer. But there's actually a study done that you can actually only go hard like that for about 3 years, no matter how old you are, before things just stop for you in some way, some big health crisis, or usually your health corrodes, whether you're 21 or 36, like.
Yeah, that happened to me. That's true because
Yeah.
I spent 20 hours a day in a desk in my early 20s. I got fatter, out of shape, bad nutrition, and I started getting repetitive stress injuries in my mousing arm. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah, right.
I spent-
Things that we
that
just
is
chalk
wild.
up to
just like
21st
walking
century.
around and I can't walk. I can't feel my fingers because I sit in the desk too much.
Yeah, that's
I
terrible.
mean, that's not healthy.
no,
No.
it's not. It's so not. Yeah. What about you, Ledge? Any advice for the youngsters?
Yeah, I mean, I think we glorify this idea of working all the time. And, I love the work that I do. So it's never that I dislike working, but, maybe I think I would like to have had better awareness of the things that I didn't like of the work. And now I think I could have budgeted better for that. So it's like, sometimes I feel like having an assistant answer my calls and do my emails and stuff is sort of like, I don't know, like egotistical or something. Like, oh, you're too cool to answer my email and playing coffee with me. You have an assistant. I don't know that people react that way, but I'm sensitive to it. But I think if I could tell my early self anything, it would be get somebody to help with the stuff that you just feel angst about. And it's okay to spend a little money on that and budget that way. And that's what, don't fool yourself that this is going to be a short run. I mean, you're going to go hard indefinitely, and you're going to have to do it. And it might take 10 times to get your break.
Yeah.
And we're still doing that. I mean, I make, in some ways, people go, oh, that's so cool. I met with a 23-year-old the other day, and I mean, you make your own way as an independent, and you do whatever you want, and all those things. I'm like, yeah, but I am fully responsible for that too. And it's not, I love it, but don't glorify that because it's just hard all the time. And you're putting in dues that are different than the dues you put in corporate life. So I don't know. I guess it's be aware, and there's so many more resources now. I mean, I came out of college. You didn't hear about being an entrepreneur, and there wasn't 50,000 books about how to manage your life, and we know things about neuroscience now that we couldn't have imagined 20 years ago.
And an incubator on every corner and all
Yeah,
that.
Right.
But I mean,
I think one of the big things, especially in a startup journey, which is what this show is about, is that really, I mean, you can sprint all you like, but that's usually just the beginning. So what are you sprinting for? To get your first round? Then that comes, then you are answering to people, and then you go again.
Then
I
you
mean,
have
it's
a
more
boss.
like a circular track than it is
Absolutely.
a point to point.
Absolutely.
So it's like you pass one lap and you're on lap 2. Well, if you just sprinted, you're out, man. I mean, there's no
That's
way.
right.
Yeah, and I can
do that.
guarantee you the pressure and the responsibilities get greater and greater as you move forward in your journey.
And I think I've heard this a lot, and yet I've lived it out in the last year, especially. But taking time off is a discipline. So it's hard to take time off when you enjoy your work, when you know that there's deadlines, when you're the one that's solely responsible. It's suddenly like, well, why am I sitting here quietly on the porch and reading a book when I could be doing these 10 things on my list? And the answer is, well, frankly, because my brain's not working. And this is about all I can manage.
Recognize when it's not working and that's
and
okay.
take it's okay. It's okay. It will work again. I think that was one of my big fears.
I've just had,
that if I stopped, I wouldn't start again. And
the
it doesn't work that way.
fuse burned out and it's the only one you got.
I've just had the aha moment where all the youngsters are looking at us thinking, you stupid old people.
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
I've been thinking that the
I've
whole
just
time.
finally got that old.
I was that arrogant bastard, so good luck to you.
That's right. I've been thinking that the
fun.
whole time, and
Have
like,
fun.
okay, guys,
Yeah.
it's all right.
I'll
Well,
finish it. Exactly.
I was thinking about it. I think I posted on Twitter several weeks ago, but I'm like, you know, I can remember distinctly the conversation I had in 2007 that if I had followed that mentor's advice, I would have saved like 100 grand.
Oh, God.
I mean, no joke. And like, and now what I posted was like, I know that, you know, in 2021, some entrepreneur is going to look back and be like, if I listened to Ledge, I would have saved 100 grand. You're still not going to do it.
No,
so, but you know, so your burn budget ought to include your arrogance.
Yeah. Maybe we're here because of the way that we've done those same things that these kids are about to do or that are doing. But
I mean, bless your hearts. You know, kick ass, but it's hard.
I still think slow and steady wins the race. Fast and pacey doesn't.
Yeah.
That's my saying, and that's what I stick to. Hey, we've loved having you guys on Serious Startups. Don't forget you can follow us at Serious Startups. Join in the conversation and send us some topics if you want to discuss it, or even send us some of your businesses and we can talk about those and see what's going on in the startup world. As I said, we've loved having you on board, and we'll see you next time on Serious Startups.